you don't realize what you're going to go through, but the process is going to be transformational, and just keep going. Like you're going to
Mhm.
get to a really amazing place. And I realized I had the same message for myself. There are going to
Mhm.
be times like you don't really know what's ahead, and there'll be some beautiful moments, but there's going to be some really hard things that you can't even imagine right now. But stay the course. Like
Mhm.
just keep going, keep doing your meaningful work, keep showing up for your kids, keep taking care of and investing in yourself and being open to your own growth, and stay connected to other people so you don't have to do this by yourself.
Hi, conscious parents. It's Carrie here, and I am here with a little info about raising our mindful kids. I've got some tips and tricks about breaking free of the box and becoming who you are, and teaching your kids how to do that along the way. Join us. Hi there, conscious parents. Before we start today's episode, it's Carrie here, and I wanted to reach out to ask you guys for a quick favor. As a follower of our show, we would love for you to give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. It can be just a few words, that's it. And it really goes a long way with us, with the podcasting community on Apple or Spotify. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm so excited for you to hear today's message. Happy listening. Hi there, and welcome back. I'm Carrie. I'm here with a lovely guest. I have the Mother's Quest founder, Julie Neale, here today, and she honors the magic, mess, and meaning of parenthood and believes our children challenge us to grow into our best selves. So she's on a mission to live a truly epic life, and through her example, inspire her children to do the same. She's navigated years of infertility, advocating for two neurodivergent children, and discovered her own ADHD diagnosis just before turning 50. So she knows what it's like to hit a few bumps in the road. And Julie, I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm so excited to connect with you. We were just chatting beforehand about how you're on the next era of where I'm at with my adventure in motherhood. So it's really lovely to see this little piece of the future for me.
Yes, I'm so honored to be here. I absolutely love to make space for reflection and to have meaningful
Mhm.
conversation, and especially with moms who have children who are neurodivergent or have differences in any way. So this is great for me. It fills my cup as well. So thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, and I am so curious. I have been reading through some of your things, and I've been so excited to find out about what is this epic life framework that you're discussing? What does that mean for you?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, there's a few storylines that thread through this. The first is that I come from a youth development community building background. I know your mothering is informed a lot by the work you did before you became a mom. For so many years, I was really dedicated to helping young people learn and grow. And I worked at an organization that was unique and was really committed to helping the adults continue to learn and grow and to model the kind of leadership we were trying to instill in young people. And so when I became a mom and I began to have some challenges and definitely had to advocate at a very early age, my older son, who's now 20, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 18 months.
Mhm.
So very early on in my
Yeah.
motherhood journey, I was already navigating some different terrain. I realized pretty quickly that same kind of principle about supporting the adult also applied
Mhm.
to motherhood.
Mhm.
And after my second child was born, which happened after 5+ years of infertility, I
Oh.
realized that I would love to bring the coaching and community building mindset that I had in my youth development community building work with the adult staff that worked there to
Mhm.
moms. And this dream lived inside me, and the name Mother's Quest, like, because I felt like I was always on a
Yes.
quest for how I could show up and be a present and mindful parent, but also not forget that I'm here to make an impact in the world, and that there was more that was about my own life that I wanted to pay attention to. That name was with me, but for years I didn't do anything with it. And I did one workshop one year where I brought some of my closest friends in, and then I noticed Facebook gave me a reminder one day after I had dropped my older son off that it had been a whole year since that workshop. And I had this sinking feeling. I'm sure some people can relate to this when you feel like trapped in your own skin, like something that matters to you, you have not advanced at all. And no sooner did I have that feeling, a feeling of this trapped feeling that I walked through the front door and heard this crashing noise in my home. At the time, my younger one, who's now almost 12, he was, I think, 4 at the time. And we saw that there was a bird that had somehow come in our little narrow doorway and was crashing against the glass overlooking our garden. And it totally freaked us out. But when we came back downstairs, I got myself together and I was like, okay, all I need to do is open this door and the bird should fly out, which it did. And I think I would have gone on with my day and I wouldn't have created Mother's Quest and I wouldn't be talking to you if not for the sound of crashing again. And it was a
Mm.
second bird. So the two had come in together. And I had noticed that the other one didn't fly away. It was hopping around my deck, and I worried maybe it had hurt itself. This time I knew exactly what to do. I opened the door. This bird didn't fly out suddenly. It very slowly hopped out, which gave me time to go take a picture of it, which I'm so grateful that I still have today. And I stood at
Cool.
the doorway and said, okay, universe, clearly you have a message for me. You sent the second one so that I wouldn't just go about my day. And I sat down at the table. In those days, I wasn't commonly giving my kid a screen. So I think I got like glue and paper and whatever I thought was going to
Oh.
keep Jacob interested. And I wrote this Facebook post out, which became a declaration. And for me, that moment of opening the door for the birds was my stake in the ground that I would no longer have this dream inside of me that I didn't pursue. I didn't
Mm.
yet know what it was going to look like, but I was like, I am making this Mother's Quest thing happen.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, I got some support and did a lot of brainstorming and thinking to figure out like what am I most on a quest for and how can I try to communicate this to other mothers
Mm.
that I want to engage and invite into the process. And this idea of living an epic life is what emerged. It
Mm.
actually came spilled onto a napkin at my kitchen table. I'm realizing a lot of things happen at that kitchen table now, actually.
Yeah.
And epic is both a metaphor and an acronym mnemonic. So
Mm.
the metaphor is that we're here to live our one precious life too, just like we have dreams for our children, and that we need to not forget ourselves in the process. That we should live our version of an epic life, the kind of life that we would want in our own storybook, the kind of life we would want to tell stories about to our grandchildren if we're sitting on the porch together, the things that are filled with all that matters most to us. And then EPIC is also this acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us to live that life when we're raising our children. E
Mm.
is about engaging mindfully. P is about our passionate and purposeful impact beyond being a mom.
Mhm.
I is investing in ourselves, and that's where all of the self care and creating space for things that bring us joy come in. And then C is connected to a strong support network. So we remember that we do not have to be alone on this journey. And so, both the metaphor, this idea of stepping back into being the author of our story, and then also the foundation for my coaching programs, for all of the interviews that I've done, which now number over 100 on the Mother's Quest podcast.
Wow.
And I also created a few years ago something called the Live Your Epic Year Planner, which has a lot of my reflective practices and the Epic Life framework woven into the planner itself. And I can't remember if I said all my coaching programs too. So it is a touch point
Mm.
for me. Even in the
Mm.
morning, if I like today ended up being such a hectic morning, I didn't have time to do a more thoughtful morning practice, which I usually appreciate. But even if I just close my eyes and take a couple deep breaths and go through those epic guideposts and check in with myself, okay, where am I in terms of how I'm connecting with my kids right now? Where am
Mm.
I with my impact? How am I taking care of myself? Where am I connecting with people? I find that to be very grounding.
Mm. I love that. I love you mentioned that this is a little piece that came out in me was the kitchen table. I love that you
Yeah.
mentioned it's like the source of creation in our family, right? There's so much that goes on there, so many amazing chats that are had there. And I
Mhm.
actually created our kitchen table myself. I took an old
Oh my God, I love that.
Amish table that I bought on Marketplace and I
Wow.
sanded it down and refinished it and it's white oak and it was like this labor of love that I did when we bought our house. So I love that you were saying
Please
that.
send me a photo. And it's funny, how many interviews have I done over all of
Yeah.
these years? I created Mother's Quest in 2016. I
Mhm.
didn't actually make that connection about the importance of the kitchen table until this conversation.
Mm.
So thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about connection, right? And that's
Yeah.
like the means to the connection for us with our kids and our families. And I love your epic. This is great. So my year this year is the year of passion. So I love that
Mm.
P in there. I was going to ask you with connection, being a mom of kids that are possibly 2E or neurodiverse, have you found it more challenging to find that connection with other parents or people? This is more for my sake, I think, then hopefully it can help our listeners as well. But that's just been something that's been heavy on my heart.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that I have been very fortunate prior to launching Mother's Quest. I
Yeah.
did have opportunity to connect with other parents that I felt, even if it wasn't that they were navigating the same diagnosis, like their kids were differently wired in some kind of
Yeah.
way, and we could
Yep.
bond over that. But
Yep.
after launching Mother's Quest, it became a vehicle for meeting so many other moms from really all across the country
Hmm.
who are all trying to navigate this motherhood journey with kids
Yep.
who have a lot of differences. And that has been so powerful for me. I feel like I get just as much from
Hmm.
coaching or creating circles or space for moms who have kids who are neurodivergent as I
Hmm.
hope that I provide to them. And
Yep.
sometimes I don't even necessarily promote, I don't say that the coaching I'm doing or the circle that I'm doing is only for moms who have neurodivergent kids. But for whatever reason, one, I think that there are so many of us, like more than we realize,
Hmm.
and maybe not
Yeah.
everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think maybe just somehow people have heard the story or have somehow related to what I put out there and they find me, or other moms, as happened to me this week, will
Mhm.
make a connection and say, oh, I really think you should talk to Julie. She's been navigating this with her own kids. And so I'm
Mhm.
always happy to talk to moms and share any words of advice and also resources that have
Yeah.
been helpful to me.
Yeah, that's really neat that you're doing that for so many people. And I was just talking to my mother this morning. We were reflecting on how sometimes with having neurodivergent children, people don't understand what we're going through at home. They don't see what happens behind closed doors. And um, it can have our challenging moments and our amazing, rewarding moments. And so it can be hard sometimes to have those connections. So I love these programs that you're creating and honoring this space. And yeah, that's amazing. Hi there, Changemaker moms and dads. It's Carrie here. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. If there's any pieces of this episode that resonate with you, we would love for you to share it with a friend. A little helping hand goes a long way. We appreciate you tuning in, and here's more. And your passion piece, do you find that a lot of parents are lacking in that piece because maybe it's been put on hold when you become a parent, or what does that look like when you see?
Yeah, I think a lot of the moms in my community are similar to me, I would say, in that we've always been very mission driven.
Mm.
Before we became parents, there was
Yeah.
work we were doing in the world that
Yeah.
really made a difference.
Yeah.
And then, especially if you end up having kids who have unique needs,
Hmm.
extra needs, it's really easy to lose so many parts of yourself. But then the
Mm.
impact part in particular can be one of the first to go. And that's definitely true for me. I never stopped doing meaningful work, but I
Hmm.
felt like my work was definitely sidelined and it wasn't evolving with me. It was like
Mm.
whatever thing I could just continue to do while I mostly focused on my kids and trying to
Yeah.
support them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at a certain point, I really felt the loss of that. And I realized I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. And the realization that like we're modeling so much for our kids, and I wanted them to see me pursuing meaningful, impactful work. And that has been really a powerful part of the journey since I launched Mother's Quest.
Yes, I agree with that so much. I always talk to listeners about how if we're not practicing what we're preaching to our kids, what's going to make them want to do it if we're not doing it ourselves. So I love that so much. And I think finding that passion in ourselves, maybe reigniting it in a different
Yes.
way, or coming back to something that maybe we did beforehand, but we had to put on pause, it really ignites so much energy and connection in ourselves, and the kids feel that too. when we can connect to our hearts again, when we can feel that energy and feel and embrace that, it really, the kids can feel it, our partners can feel it. It just creates this new energy in our house. So I love that.
Absolutely.
It's been so good. So I was going to ask you for your engage. What was that? I missed that piece. I was trying to catch up on
Oh,
that.
engaging mindfully with our kids. I know it's like first and
Oh,
foremost for you.
yes. That's
And
just,
that was the first thing. What was interesting about the way that these things spilled out onto the napkin
mm,
is in some ways it was like what was at the forefront of my mind. So for me,
mm,
engaging mindfully with my kids, showing up as a mom is all it just does become the first thing I think about. But then it was great to figure out. And what else really matters? Yes, that may
yeah.
be the starting point, and I think it is for so many moms.
Yeah.
But what are the other things that also matter beyond our kids?
Yes. And speaking to that, if you could tell the 10-year past version of yourself something, like a person in my era, maybe with my 9 and 6-year-old, what would you say to that person?
It's funny that you asked that question in that way. And actually, I'm feeling a little bit teary as you
Oh,
ask it because one of the unique things that I have done with my kids to mindfully engage with them, particularly my oldest, who's now 20, a little bit more about him. He's autistic. He also has ADHD and he's highly gifted. So checks a
mm,
few boxes I
wow.
know that are similar to some of your kiddos. And when he turned 13, we spent the day going on something that I call a milestone hike. So we actually physically went on this hike in this beautiful park nearby that has this ascent and a full 360-degree view of the San Francisco Bay.
Mm,
And the walk up the hill was an opportunity for him to reflect on the first 13 years of his life and me to reflect on the first 13 years of my motherhood journey.
mm, mm,
And at the top of the mountain, we draw a line and decide what do we want to carry forward and what do we want to leave behind. And then the descent is about what is the next chapter ahead? What is our
wow.
vision for what's ahead? And we chose after that to go to San Francisco that day. And we recorded in an official recording studio because I usually record at home, but this was like I
Mhm.
wanted it to be official. So we went to this
Wow.
amazing studio and we recorded an episode about
Mm,
what had come up for us. So I have this incredible time capsule of Ryan at age 13 just becoming an adolescent,
yeah.
me still at the early stages of having launched Mother's Quest. And when we were on that hike, Ryan said, I want to do this again when I turn 20. I want to bookend my teenage years with this experience.
Wow.
So I had forgotten about it, but his birthday was in March. He turned 20, and he started saying to me in the days ahead, we need to plan our hike. So last March, we spent the day at the same mountain doing the hike again,
Wow.
reflecting on what had happened in those years since we had done the hike together before. And then we went and recorded at a different recording studio with this amazing woman who we were both connected to in different ways. And she held the space beautifully for us. And that
Wow.
episode is out. So anyone who's interested in listening to these two conversations, I think they're really fascinating and rich. And Ryan's so generous in sharing.
Yeah.
Um, but the question that Trisha, who's the woman that invited us to her recording studio for our recent conversation, asked Ryan was, what would you have told your 13-year-old self? And then she asked me the same question. Through tears, I said that something similar to what Ryan said, which is
Wow.
you're going to have no idea. You have no idea what you're going to go through.
Yeah.
Ryan and I had really challenging years after that 13-year-old birthday. Adolescence was a very difficult time for him. And we had and his
No.
first girlfriend and going off to college and trying to live independently and a
Yeah.
crash and burn that happened there. And there was so much in his life. And he was like, I would just tell that 13-year-old, you don't realize what you're going to go through, but the process is going to be transformational and just keep going. Like you're going to
Hmm.
get to a really amazing place. And I realized I had the same message for myself. There are going to
Hmm.
be times like you don't really know what's ahead, and there'll be some beautiful moments, but there's going to be some really hard things that you can't even imagine right now. But stay the course. Like
Hmm.
just keep going, keep doing your meaningful work, keep showing up for your kids, keep taking care of and investing in yourself and being open to your own growth and stay connected to other people so you don't have to do this by yourself. And I just am so grateful for where I am on the other side of all of this growth and transformation and to witness where my kids are.
Mm. That's really beautiful. I love that. I love thinking about talking to the younger version of us in that 13-year-old stage, which is maybe the most awkward stage. I think my husband and I always discuss. I think that was around the most awkward time or the hardest piece of development. So that's so wonderful. I love that you guys. Did you play the 13-year-old version part when you were there? What he said when he was 13? Did you get
Um,
to relive that together?
the night before the hike, the night
Okay.
before when he was turned 20, before his birthday, we listened to the 13-year-old version again and
That's
laughed
wonderful.
and smiled and, especially his voice was so different.
Oh,
Um,
cute.
but all the things we laughed and we share a lot of this in the more recent episode too.
Okay, I'll have to
Some of the
listen.
things. So I didn't have an ADHD diagnosis on that.
Oh,
The
yeah.
first episode that we recorded together, but I talk about one of the questions was like, what's one of my challenges? And I talked about having a hard time organizing things, being
Mhm.
on time. So Ryan was like, oh, mom, it's just so funny. How did we not know? Like, all the signs were there. How did it
Yep.
take us so long to realize that this is what was going on for you?
It's like maybe we knew, but we didn't know, but we knew. Or there's a piece of there. That's cute. That's really neat. It sounds so healing for
Mhm.
everyone to hear that. I know it brought up pieces in me too. I love this idea. I'm thinking I might need to try doing this at New Year's or something with my kids, maybe going for the
Yes.
hike. I love that.
So I do what I love about the hike, and it doesn't have to be just on birthdays, is it's
Mm.
this beautiful opportunity. It's this beautiful opportunity to open and close any kind of chapter. Beginning of the school year, we've done it. Definitely New Year, birthdays, of course, but any other like meaningful milestone.
Love
And I
it.
also do it in community with the moms.
Mm.
And every February, I do a virtual milestone hike. So I
Oh.
take the experience of the hike and actually use some of the pictures of this particular one that Ryan and I did together.
Mhm.
And we do a more meditative experience where you close your eyes and you envision going up, reflecting on whatever chapter you're closing while you're envisioning going up the summit, crossing the line, looking at the
Mm.
view, and just using it as a metaphor, which is so powerful. So if you're
Yeah,
interested in joining this year, keep an
that's
eye out
cool.
for it. I always do it in February, not January. I say February is the new January because no matter what, I
You're
never
so
feel
busy.
ready to really start the year in January and or there's like Murphy's Law and things happen. There's like sickness in the house or
Mhm.
whatever it is. January never seems to be quite the right time yet. So come
Yeah,
along with us in February and you can experience it too.
I love that. I was going to ask you, you mentioned spiritual pieces. Is that something that you've incorporate into your parenthood and your journey with your kids? Just
Yeah,
curious.
I think that for me and with my kids, the spiritual is a lot around making space within ourselves and between us to reflect. Sometimes thinking there's a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Mhm.
Like I felt like the birds were a message for me.
Yeah, those
My
symbols.
son would always make fun of me and say, "Mom, that was just a totally random thing. That was not a message from the universe." And what I like to say is that it actually doesn't matter whether it was or wasn't. What matters was the meaning I chose to make of it.
Yes.
So I would say the spiritual connection for us is often not like religiously rooted, but just in
Hmm.
this broader sense of
Yep.
connecting to what's inside us
Yep.
and making space for thinking that there might be something bigger than us.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I feel like there's been so much growth from my kids when we look at some of the mindful pieces. So that's really
Mhm.
special. Yeah. Thank you so much, Julie, for being here. And I have this ready. I'm going to try this in January because we don't have any birthdays before then. But I think January is going to be the time I try it with my kids. Hopefully, we get some good weather in Colorado. We can go for a
Please take
hike.
some photos and let me know how it goes. And if you want
Yeah.
a little bit of a guide listening to those two episodes, I
Yeah.
think would be really helpful before you do it too.
Okay. If you send me the links, I can include them in our show notes. I
That
love
would be
that.
amazing.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Thank you so much for being here, Julie. I love connecting with you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating space for me to reflect and make some new connections I hadn't before. And I would love for you to send me a picture of your table.
Oh, yes, I will do that. I'll have to post it on the
Yep,
video.
you have a few homework assignments coming out of
I
this
do.
conversation.
I do. Thank you. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in, Changemakers. This is Carrie. And if you haven't done a review for us, 5 stars and a little few words about what you've enjoyed in our podcast episodes, we would really appreciate it. If you guys would like to ever message me, I would love any questions you have or any feedback at info@hearttoheartlife.com. We also have a brand new website, which we're super excited to share. It's hearttoheartlife.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, and happy life, happy times, Changemaker families. Please remember that the information shared on this podcast is educational in nature and does not constitute licensed mental health advice. If you need such advice, you should speak with a licensed professional about your unique situation. Thanks so much, happy listeners.